This is the 5 tech things you should know about episode number 71. It's the end of the year. Let's run down some tech, brought to you by Mosey.com. Hey everybody, Jeffrey Powers here. Thanks a lot for downloading the 5 tech things you should know about. For those of you weekend warriors in tech that don't want too much information overload, here we go. Let's get into your 5 tech things. A special 5 tech things this week. 5 top tech stories of 2010. Number 5 on the list is 4G. We're moving from 3G to 4G. You can now get yourself a 4G on Verizon or 4G on Sprint. Faster speeds through your mobile device. Do you really need your landline connection anymore to your computer in your basement or in your living room? Or are you going to invest in one of those netbooks or laptops that actually have 4G into it? We're making a major move to a mobile market, an ability to take our computers with us wherever we go, to take our phones with us and get the content that we need using a smartphone, using a laptop, using a desktop for that matter. So 4G is my number 5 pick of technology news of 2010. 2011, we're going to see this go hog wild as everybody is going to push towards this mobile 4G and maybe even the next version of wireless speed, 5G maybe. Maybe it'll be a 5H or 4H or whatever. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Facebook could have easily been one of the worst things that happened in 2010. We were talking about privacy concerns left and right at the beginning of the year, but all of a sudden Facebook did this 180, and then a movie came out, and then Mark Zuckerberg became Man of the Year, and then all of a sudden it became a great story again. This was the best 180 news story that I've ever seen, but Facebook has hit the top 10 news stories. Of course, Mark Zuckerberg, one of the youngest millionaires out there, probably billionaire, of course. 500 million friends on Facebook. Everybody uses Facebook to play your games, to interact. You know, I remember a couple months ago I switched my my status from single to married, and all of a sudden the internet just exploded. What happened? When did you get married? How'd that work? So I changed it back to single, but then what I did was I went into my feed and then I killed the actual post that said I went back to single. So nobody really noticed, nobody went from there. Facebook in 2011, I expect it to explode even more. New stuff on the horizon, and of course, you'll never know what's going to happen down the corner, how Facebook is going to take the next turn. Of course, they've also had some news stories about Mark Zuckerberg and who would next be the next version of Mark Zuckerberg with their great ideas. So this is why it made number 4 on my list. Number 3 is the conspiracy websites. We're talking about the Pirate Bay, which went down earlier this year, and then WikiLeaks, which went down later in the year. WikiLeaks actually had some funding through the Pirate Bay party, which has got this all intertied everywhere and every which way but loose. It's a top news story simply because of the fact of how it affected. Once again, it could be one of the top 5 worst news stories, but how it played in the whole grand scheme of things, not in just the tech industry, but the political industry, the government, everything like that, then it just really made sense that this site needed to go down, especially once that file came out, that insurance file that said if WikiLeaks was down, we would then launch this file, and all of a sudden everything will go hog wild. So didn't happen just yet. Well, of course, we'll see what happens and keep you abreast of the whole situation. But that's why it hit number 3 this week. Number 2 was, it's not as much Google TV, because of course in the last week we've heard about Google TV possibly taking a step back and re-looking at their systems, but Apple TV coming out, Google TV coming out. The question, should you be cutting your cord? Do you need your cable, or can you get your stuff over the internet? What's called over-the-top TV. It's been a big thing in news stories in the last year, and it's going to get only bigger. Do you need to have 2 types of connections, a coaxial cable to get your TV or a satellite to get your TV, and an internet connection to get your stuff, or maybe even TV as well? So the switch to internet or IPTV, over-the-top television, is big in 2010. It's going to be a lot bigger in 2011 as a lot of these legal issues, a lot of these licensing issues start to get resolved, and you'll start to see major TV networks starting to push their stuff on over-the-top TV. 2010, it hit number 2 for what was out there simply because of the fact that Apple made a big deal about it. Google made a big deal about it. But 2011 will be a lot bigger than this last year, as a lot of people will start clipping their cords to go to internet TV. Remember that code GEEK, because it's going to get you 15% off for the next couple days, then it's going to go back to 10%, so use it now. Backup now, backup often, backup off-site. Protect your computer from fire, from theft, from new computers. You never know what's going to go out there, flood, fire, anything. You want to back up your computer now. Back it up often and back it up off-site using Mozy Home Unlimited service. $4.95 a month per computer backs up your whole hard drive, whether it's a 1 gigabyte drive or a 1 terabyte drive, using secure connections, and you can even back up on-site and back up off-site. So back up now, back up often, back up off-site. Use the code GEEK at checkout, and you're going to get 15% off until the end of the year. Then it's going to go back down to 10% at the beginning of 2011. So use it now, and use it with Mozy.com. All right, ladies and gentlemen, before we get into the number one news story of 2010, let's just go through a list of the 5 worst news articles of 2010. We're going to start over at Google. Google Buzz, Google Wave, one of the two. Of course, Google Wave went down, Google Buzz came up. Nobody really cared about either, and it just became a big jumble-mumble mess. Google, not too good on their social networking side, but they need to take it down and bring it back up. I think by 2011, Google Buzz and Google Wave will get some revamps to them and maybe become a little bit acceptable. Apple also had their little social network, Ping, which hasn't really used too much. And it was because it's basically just telling you what songs people bought. Number 4 was Yahoo. Of course, Yahoo ditched 600 jobs. Then they turned around and said, we need to sell all these different companies, including Delicious, including Alta Vista, and including all the web and all these other properties. Now, earlier in the year, they were selling hot jobs, and Monster came in and purchased it for, I believe, somewhere around $225 million. But the biggest problem is Yahoo is selling their properties left and right. They'll have absolutely nothing to go on, and I have a feeling Yahoo is going to get completely dissolved, if not by the end of this year, by the beginning of next year. Number 3, of course, was the big Gawker password retrieval system. Now, the passwords, as we talked about before, anybody that had an easy password, what's called a dictionary password, it's found in the dictionary. They didn't use any extra keystrokes or anything like that, didn't replace any characters with $ or ampersands and numbers or anything like that. Got their passwords hacked through Gawker. If you still have not changed your password in the last year, it is time to actually do it now. Gawker brought this as a bad story, but in all reality, it's teaching us it's time to change passwords, so maybe it could be a good story. But for now, it's number 3 on my top 5 worst tech news list. Number 2 is the Microsoft Kin. Of course, they launched at the beginning of the year this brand new semi-smartphone where you could actually do a lot of things. You could buy it for $50 to $100 with a contract, but then again, the contract was just as pricey as an Apple iPhone, so what was the sense in doing it? Towards the end of the year, Microsoft decided to nix the Kin altogether, shut down the servers, so if you do have a Kin 1 or a Kin 2, you might be out of luck. There might be some other uses for it. I think you can still use it as a phone, and you can still use it to get data from the web, but you might as well switch your phones to a smartphone anyway. And then the number 1 worst tech news of the year was, of course, the iPhone in the bar. What a waste of news space. You find an iPhone in a bar, an iPhone 4, and all of a sudden everybody's exploding. Now the funny thing about this was this iPhone didn't start getting reported on until about 3 to 4 weeks later. So they had this thing for 3 to 4 weeks, complete media blackout, which was pretty amazing to me. I figured that it would have been on the internet within a second. Hey, I found an iPhone 4 in the bar. Yeah, hello. The news story was just horrible, and we didn't really get anything out of it except for the fact that you could do a front-facing camera on an iPhone 4. So it really went nowhere, and it wasted a lot of people's time, and it was the worst story in 2010. At least that's my pick for the worst story of 2010. If you want to let me know what your worst story of 2010 is, let me know over at geekazine@gmail.com. All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, the number one tech story of 2010, the Apple iPad. Steve Jobs did a great job in announcing this new device, this new innovation, which really has been around for years, but not to the level that he brought it. You could actually have a 10-inch screen, you could hold it in one hand, you could have hours of battery life, you could do the stuff that you need to do, not the complicated stuff, but stuff that you still need to do. Go to an app store, play games, do work, create, and be done, and just have a small little device that you can slip back into your bag. Everybody's adopting it. Even businesses are starting to adopt iPad more than they would an iPhone, more than they would an Apple Mac, and it's definitely swinging things into a new direction. People that never had an Apple product before now have an Apple iPad. It just seemed to make a brand new direction in our computing lives, and a lot of people probably will tell you that they cannot live without their iPad, whereas 365 days ago, they had no idea what an Apple iPad was. Thanks to the rumors of Apple's rumor mill, which I'm not really big fond of, they really put a lot of hype into it. And of course, when they delivered, they really delivered a knockout punch, and it, like I said, it changed the way we compute, or the majority of us compute. I still use my last laptop and my desktop because I need the computing power. But those of you who just need to write emails or check the web or do something very simplistic, read a book, you can do it on your Apple iPad. And that is your 5 tech things that you should know about. My name is Jeffrey Powers. I hope you guys have a safe and wonderful new year. We are going to be at the Consumer Electronics Show next week, so there probably won't be a 5 tech things that you should know about. But 2 weeks from today, we're going to start in 2011. We're going to give you a whole bunch of stuff. If I have time, I might just do a 5 tech things you should know next week. But 2 weeks is the best thing to do. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to email me, geekazine@gmail.com, or call the hotline at 608-205-4378. For the 5 tech things you should know about, thanks a lot. I'd like to thank all our sponsors, Mozy.com for doing this, of course, Snork Tees for all these great t-shirts that they've been giving me in the last 6 months, the Luxor for helping us with the CES push, of course, Audible.com, GoDaddy, and of course the viewers that have been watching the show. Thank you very much for watching. We'll give you some more content coming in 2011. But for now, for the 5 tech things you should know about, my name is Jeffrey Powers. Until maybe 2 weeks from now, take care.